This is KCBD News Channel 11's Daybreak Today.
Now at 6, the new Congress will be sworn in today. However, who will be the next Speaker of the House is still uncertain. We will explain. Plus, we have a rundown of several new laws going into effect today. And Governor Abbott has renewed the drought disaster declaration. A look at which counties on the South Plains that includes and how it might affect you. Those stories and more are on the way for you. But first, we'd like to say good morning. I'm Angie Wynn. It is Tuesday, January 3rd. We'll get to those stories in a moment, as well as your forecast with Steve Devine. But Michael Cantu is working on several things at the News Now desk. What's the latest, Michael?
Well, Andy, we have some severe weather updates to share as meteorologists expect severe weather across the south, and China is now putting out a response as the U.S. and others impose travel measures against the country. But for now, let's turn to Steve and get a check of the forecast. Morning, Steve.
Good morning. This morning, watching those thunderstorms Michael referenced out over the Gulf Coast states and up into actually headed it but to parts of the Ohio Valley. But we just have some clouds here. The showers that we see out to the west, once again, won't quite make it here. Yesterday, we did get some sprinkles, a little bit of light rain in the area, just trace amounts though. Temperatures right now are in the 30s, most of us in the upper 30s, including Lubbock, Levelland, actually everybody reporting right now in the upper 30s. A little bit of a breeze, so that puts our wind chill close to freezing or below. Lubbock is 29, Levelland 29, so a little bit colder as you head out this morning. Wind speeds will be kicking back up again. It won't be quite as windy as yesterday. I'm not saying that it's not going to be windy. I'm still saying it's going to be windy, just not as windy as yesterday. Temperatures this afternoon in the 50s, and again, a little bit of cloud cover, a little bit of sunshine mixed in together today, Angie.
All right, thank you. As long as we're clear.
As long as we're clear.
Thank you, Steve. All right, well, the 118th Congress is being sworn in today, and before members take their oaths of office, the House is scheduled to elect a new speaker. The outcome of that critical vote is uncertain, as GOP leader Kevin McCarthy appears to be struggling to drum up support to secure that win. Mike Valerio has a preview of the critical new session.
A new Congress is getting underway, marking a historic and uncertain new session. For the newly Republican-led House, a key vote Tuesday about who will be the next speaker.
Let me be clear.
Republican leader Kevin McCarthy still does not have enough votes to secure the win. Because of the razor-thin GOP majority, McCarthy can only afford to lose 4 Republican votes. But there are already 5 hardline conservatives who say they're a no. And another 9 who are asking for a wide range of concessions, with critics like Republican Bob Good saying McCarthy has done nothing to earn his vote.
There's nothing that indicates to me that he's going to change his pattern since he's been in leadership, where he's part of the swamp cartel.
So if it's not McCarthy, then who? Some speculation that Tuesday afternoon's vote could feature multiple ballots for a House Speaker, something not seen in 100 years. But on the night before the election, McCarthy sounding confident about his odds.
Do you have the votes for Speaker locked in tomorrow?
I think we're going to have a good day tomorrow.
Meanwhile, the new Congress is also making history with the largest number of women elected to serve. 149 women are set to serve in the U.S. House and Senate. More than half of the incoming class of 22 freshman women in the House are women of color, including Summer Lee, the first black woman to ever represent Pennsylvania.
I'm honored to serve as people who come from a working class background, from a black community.
I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
Here at home, fallen power lines caused a fire in North Lubbock. Lubbock Fire Rescue says a utility pole fell last night. This was around 8 near the 100 block of North Avenue P. It set a nearby fence on fire and spread to surrounding grass and trees. LP&L assisted at the scene to shut off power to the downed lines. Thankfully, no structures were burned and no injuries were reported. Now, taking a look across the nation, severe weather is in the forecast for some parts of the United States today. Michael is bringing us the latest at the News Now desk. Michael?
Well, Angie, one area forecasters are looking at this morning stretches from Louisiana up to Tennessee. Few tornado warnings have already been sent out in Kentucky and Mississippi this morning. Here's a look at damage after that system passed through Arkansas overnight. The National Weather Service says damaging wind and hail are also major threats today. The biggest risks are expected around southeast Louisiana into the southern central part of Alabama. Quite a few tornado watches are already in effect. Those will remain until about 11 this morning. Angie?
Thank you, Michael. It's a new year, and Texas has new laws to go along with it. Laws passed and signed in 2021 went into effect yesterday, and this comes as state lawmakers head into a new legislative session next week. One big ticket measure that went into effect was Senate Bill 12. This bill restricts the amount of property taxes a public school district can levy on the home of elderly or disabled residents. And it comes after Governor Abbott signed a school finance bill in 2019 that gave schools more state money, mainly so they could lower property tax rates. However, it did not include elderly and disabled homeowners at the time. Another measure now in effect is House Bill 3774. This bill created an overhaul of the state judicial system by creating a total of 17 new courts. The bill also revised the jurisdiction of certain statutory county courts and revised the duties of particular district and county attorneys. Additionally, it allows public access to the state's court document database, but only with authorization from the Texas Supreme Court. And finally, Senate Bill 1210 is now in effect as well. This bill created new air pollution rules. The bill requires building codes to allow the use of refrigerants, pardon me, as long as they comply with the Federal Clean Air Act. The law is in line with the U.S. movement to phase out the use of chemical compounds that contribute to global warming. A Senate research analyst predicts the law will create 33,000 new manufacturing jobs, many of which will be here in Texas. Michael?
Angie, this morning, China saying testing measures targeting Chinese citizens are unfair. In recent weeks, countries like the U.S. and the U.K. have required negative COVID tests before people come from China. Well, in an update moments ago, China's foreign minister says these are political and not scientifically based. Since the beginning of last month, China has eased quarantine measures and seen a rise in COVID infections. The country now is threatening to respond if the measures continue. Angie?
Michael, thank you. Texas Governor Abbott has renewed the drought disaster declaration that was originally issued back in July. The governor says drought conditions in several counties across the state still pose a threat of imminent disaster. The declaration includes several counties here in our area, including Lubbock, Dickens, Crosby, Gaines, and Hale, among others. The governor's declaration authorizes the use of all available resources of the state and local government to cope with any disaster. It also suspends any law that would prevent or delay necessary action to deal with it. And now we're checking in with Steve for a look at this morning's weather. And you've had your eye on those drought conditions for a long time, Steve, haven't you?
And unfortunately, they continue. We've been in a La Nina pattern roughly for the last 2 years, headed into the third year, and that tends to keep us on the dry side overall, and temperatures above average overall. Doesn't mean every day is a dry day or every day the temperatures are above average, just overall. You see the drought conditions continue 1 month ago, area-wide. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we had drought-wise just 1 week ago. Not a lot of change there. And here's the current drought monitor, just issued Thursday, by the way. We'll get a new one Thursday morning. So we have extensive severe droughts across the area with these patches of extreme drought showing up. So this is, again, very dry conditions. When the winds kick up, we're looking at no burn conditions as we were yesterday. We will again today. Again, 1 month ago, you can see slight improvement, slight decrease in that extreme drought, but still drought area-wide here. And the forecast, well, I'm looking at some cloud cover. Could produce a couple of sprinkles, really not expecting that to reach the ground, not even what we saw yesterday with some trace amounts in the area. This afternoon, a little bit more sunshine, however. In terms of the winds, not as windy as yesterday, but still a windy day. Expecting to see our sustained winds gradually picking up to about 20 to 30 miles per hour. Now, you'll see some exceptions to that here on the map, but right here in the Lubbock area, especially mid to late afternoon, about 20 to 30. Now, there'll be some gusts above that, so we're still looking at that elevated wildfire danger. No burn conditions continuing here across the area. High temperatures, yesterday we peaked at 72. Just briefly, then the temperature fell back into the 50s. Highs today for most of us will be in the 50s, with Lubbock at about 59, close to 60 in the roughly eastern third or so of the viewing area. Then tonight it'll get a little bit colder, still quite breezy, mostly fair. Temperatures will drop down close to freezing here in the Lubbock area. With the breeze tomorrow morning, it'll again feel like it's in the 20s. I'll have the 7-day forecast for you coming up here in a few minutes.
Steve, thank you so much. It is 6:09 on your Tuesday morning. Coming up on Daybreak today, we're talking about TxDOT launching a new campaign, one that focuses on keeping drunk drivers off the road, leading to safer holidays. Plus, a police chase comes to an end under a UPS truck. A look at shocking video of some of the year's craziest crashes is up next. Keep it here. You're watching Daybreak today on News Channel 11.